Hello students, in today's episode we are going to learn what is intro or lead in the news and how do we formulate a good interesting intro or lead. Writing intro. The intro is the most important part of any news story. It should be direct, simple and attention grabbing. It should contain the most important elements of the story, but not the whole story. The details can be told later. It should arouse the interest of the reader or listener and be short. Normally, it should be one sentence of not more than 20 words for print media and fewer for radio or television. The perfect intro. You need to keep certain things in mind in order to formulate a perfect intro. The intro should be based on the most newsworthy aspect of the story. The intro should be kept short, uncluttered, and relevant to the main story. It should be grammatically simple. The intro should make the reader want to read the rest of the story. The intro should be appropriate in style to the story. These are some of the things which you have to keep in mind while formulating a good intro. Let us now look at some of the important points about how to formulate a good lead. First, newsworthiness. To write an intro, you must first decide what makes the story news. There may be several things which are newsworthy in the story. If so, you have to decide which is the most newsworthy element in that story. This will be the intro. In this way, your readers or listeners will be provided with the most important information straight away. Even if they stop reading or listening after the first one or two sentences, they will still have an accurate idea of what the story is about. Next point is short and simple. Keep your intro short and simple. Your intro should normally be no longer than 20 words. There is no minimum length. An intro of 10 or 12 words can be very effective. Usually, an intro will be one sentence. However, two short sentences are better than one long, crowded and confused sentence. The words you use should be short and simple, and the grammar should be clear and simple. You should not try to give too much details in the intro. The 6 main questions which journalists try to answer, who, what, where, when, why and how, will all need to be answered in your news story, but they should not all be answered in your intro. Try to remember these questions as the 5 W's and 1 H. For each of those 6 key questions, you will need to ask whether this detail makes the story news. For example, if a building is going to be inaugurated, who comes to inaugurate that building? What is that event? What is being inaugurated? What is that building all about? The next point is attract the reader. The intro is the most important part of the news story because it determines whether the rest of the story will be read. If the intro is dull, the reader will not want to read on. If it is too complicated, the reader will give up. Your time and effort in gathering information and writing the story will all be wasted unless you write a good intro. Next, appropriate style. Not all possible intros are appropriate. It would be wrong to write a humorous intro for a story about tragedy. Serious news stories call for serious intros. For example, you cannot write a humorous intro for a train accident in which many people have lost their lives. You need to be sensitive towards the emotions of those who have lost their beloved, their loved ones. And that's why you need to keep an appropriate intro for news. Now let us look at some of the key points which will help us to formulate a good intro. Before you write anything, you have to decide what is the most newsworthy aspect of the story. To do this, let us remind ourselves of the main criteria for news. Is it new? Is it unusual? Is it interesting or significant? Is it about people? Any fact or opinion which meets some or all of these criteria is what we call a key point. All the key points belong in the news story, but only the most newsworthy key point belong in the intro. It is your job to decide which is the most newsworthy key point. Go through your notes, go through the handouts, and on a piece of paper, list all the key points and then decide upon which is the most newsworthy key point. Let us now look at some of the types of leads. First, summary lead or straight lead. It summarizes key point or points. It puts forth the central issue of the story. This is the most traditional and straight way of writing intro. It provides answers to most of the 5 W's and H. It is direct, simple, and attention-grabbing. It is normally of 1 or 2 sentences. Next, interpretative lead. This goes beyond stating mere facts of events. It provides the context, analyzes the issue, and gives possible consequences. This intro makes judgment and explains possible outcomes. Only those who are familiar with the subject can give such intro. Next type of lead is quotation lead. Quotes frequently are the essential documentation for a lead and should be used immediately after a paraphrase that summarizes them. Here, paraphrasing the verbatim quotation permits the removal of unnecessary words. But if a verbatim quotation itself is very important or interesting, it can be the lead itself. This lead would add an element of interest such as drama, pathos, humor, etc., or some other factor that will reach out to the readers. The next type of lead is question lead. Question lead engage readers and, done simply, start off with a conversational tone. This kind of lead is typically the hook for the reader to read the rest of the story. Readers will expect you to answer that question quickly. Question leads are more appropriate for feature story than a news story. Next, we have color lead. In color lead, the focus is on eye-catching usage that prompts reader to continue with the story. It may not contain the most important point, but it will engage readers to proceed further. Next, we have bullet lead. Here, the focus is on short sentence which carries maximum impact. It is used when an earth-shaking event takes place. It tells the story differently with maximum impact. It is not suitable as daily news intro. It tells the story differently with maximum impact. It is not suitable as daily news intro. That is all for today. See you in the next episode.